So first of all, folks, sorry, was there a question? Okay, so thank you so much for taking the time and joining this conversation. I think just introduce myself, Sudeep Krishna. I'm the co-founder and president of Healthark Insights. I work closely with Purav and the rest of the team in helping serve and deliver engagements for our clients. I've spent over 18 years with Deloitte before Healthark, and this is a topic that's pretty close to my heart, right? So we are talking about creating winning talent from India that can go and serve clients globally. It is a model in which I have worked quite extensively in my past life. I continue to do that as we speak right now at Healthark. And again, I'm sure if we look at the audience, all of you who themselves are executives in global companies, who are executives and consultants in India-based service providers, and also a lot of you are students who are looking to make career choices uh, and take those very critical foundational bets that will drive your career forward. I think this session is going to be super useful and super insightful for a lot of the choices that all of you are looking to make. So on the panel, I'll request each of the panelists to introduce themselves, but we have an outstanding group of individuals. Again, someone, all of them who worked in the global healthcare ecosystem. They worked extensively in the Indian healthcare ecosystem, and have had a ringside view of what drives some of these talent decisions. And again, how would people living in India can be very successful in the global talent marketplace. We have Andrei from Nagarro, we have Mridul from THP, and Marut from Indegene. So with that, why don't I hand over to you, Andrei, maybe a quick round of introductions, and then we can get started.
Yes, so I'm Andrei. I'm with Nagarro, and in general, I have roughly 25 years experience in software engineering. I started my career basically as a simple software engineer, and then somehow progressed through all the steps of this job journey, becoming leading the teams and then leading departments. So today I'm responsible for the global business unit, life sciences and healthcare in Nagarro, which in other words means delivering digital services across the globe to the companies, to the businesses that operate in this space. So we see ourselves as partner in digital transformation, digital enablement journey. About me, I live in Romania, Eastern Europe, but being part of a global company, especially post-pandemic world, and maybe we will talk about it a bit later, I'm a kind of globetrotter. I don't know, thinking even giving up on my apartment because I stay mostly in the hotels. But that's probably the life in any global organization. So many thanks for having me here as a guest. I feel privileged, especially that the topic is about talents in India. And for me, India is an amazing discovery as I started a much closer collaboration with teams in India and working with people and talents in India, maybe starting in 2019. So it's a fascinating topic for me. Many thanks for having me.
Thank you. Mridul, you want to go next?
Yeah, happy to go next. Somewhat sort of relate to Andre your introduction of growing up in technology or engineering. I did my engineering in manufacturing, and post that, as luck would have it, left manufacturing and spent time in technology. And then, after my MBA, ended up, in Deloitte alongside Sudeep, and ended up in healthcare. And that was about 14 and more than 14 years ago. And I've not done anything apart from healthcare since then. And I think it's been a wonderful decision to just be in this industry, be a beneficiary of the model of having a talent base around myself in India, but serving markets outside India. So certainly relate to the topic as well. Since the last 18 months, I've spent time in the health tech space. So continue to be in healthcare, but serve it more from a product and services perspective as opposed to a consulting perspective. Happy to bring my perspectives into the discussion as we move forward.
Thanks, Mridul.
Yeah.
Marut?
Thanks. So first of all, thank you for having me here. So listen, like the other two gentlemen, I think I have also spent much part of my life, of my career in healthcare, even though when I started, I've had the privilege of working in multiple different segments, including finance, commercial finance, oil and gas, uh, healthcare, of course, appliances. I think every GE business, with the exception of the cool ones like NBC Universals, I had the opportunity to be part of. Uh, you know, See, listen, skill gap is real. There is no denying that. But the fact that India today is considered the knowledge factory of the world, there is a reason for that. It talks a lot about the potential of what India can do for the rest of the world. You look at any sector, and I've had the distinct pleasure of very ringside seats to seeing the skill development organization for Government of India work. I was a part of the governing council of HS Healthcare Sector Skills Council back in the days. The way India's potential is defined is not just product or services anymore. It's human capital. And if India needs to lead the world, or if India needs to support the world to develop healthcare across, skill has to come from a country like India or China. I mean, listen, we are 1/6 of the world population. So there's no denying and there's no shying away from that. So I'll stop there. In my current role, I'm the part of the executive team for Indegene, and we, like some of my colleagues here, solve and work on some of these problems day in day out. And more than happy to share some of those examples with you guys.
Great, thank you all. And Marut, I think you make a great point around the skill factor that we focus on in India, and we've also been discussing about the whole concept of scale, right? It's if you want skilled manpower at scale, then India is one of those very few destinations that are still available. And in many ways, it's not about cost anymore. I think it's actually about talent, right? In that regard, Andrei, what's fascinating about your journey is you started working with India-based teams only recently, right? It's only been 2018 since you started working with these teams, and I would love to get your thoughts on what were the initial impressions you had on what this talent pool does well, and honestly, what this pool can do better. I think would love to get both those perspectives.
Mhm. I've been in touch with teams in India before, but more like indirectly, because being in software services, and I like more of what you say, right? It's even a matter of statistics. Being such a large population, of course, naturally the bigger amount of talent you find is in this part. For me, I think it was a very pleasant surprise, and also the timing was somehow interesting because I landed in this setup when I started working very close with teams in India when pandemic started. And when pandemic started, it impacted dramatically not only IT but all the industry. So I think the biggest discovery that happened is that we shifted very fast from this model of offshore nearshore. For that we had this idea of front end back end team, or nearshore and offshore team, and that diluted and got dissolved during pandemic, and we were able to build truly virtual global teams where we had colleagues collaborating, I don't know, in India, in Philippines, but also with some team members in Mexico, US, or Eastern Europe. That was one thing that happened to me, because my preconception of India was an offshore delivery center. And you also mentioned cost. I think cost is not anymore a topic. Of course, sometimes, I mean, there are still differences, but those are pretty negligible. Again, especially after pandemic, when virtualization of the team became something truly real, it doesn't matter that much where you work. Time zone is still a point, but otherwise there are no limitations.
But what I believe is that if I need to ramp up a large program, the only chance I can do it fast is with colleagues in India and with teams in India. And I think also the things changed dramatically again after pandemic, because the exposure that we got during pandemic also created push and pressure for industry to acknowledge that India, if you remember in the early days, India suffered a lot, and we had even certain breaches of the services coming from India. And I think this is where we all realized how important India is on the map of the digital services, because some of the big programs literally started stalling without having reliable connection to India team. So to maybe to summarize again what I wanted to say, my discovery was it's not a front end, back end, offshore and nearshore. We are working in creating a culture of a virtual team, and it's not a cost arbitrage. It's a truly access to the largest talent pool. And I'm speaking from my European experience. That's fascinating.
Yeah, I think that's super helpful. Thanks for that, Andre. Marut, I want to come to you because you've had a fascinating journey because you started your life on the industry side, right, with all the years spent with GE, and then you sort of moved over to the client service delivery side. And I think I'm sure you were a very demanding client, and probably you're also facing a bit of the other side of the coin now. You spoke about skilling, right? And when we talk about serving global healthcare ecosystems, every ecosystem is unique. It's very diverse, and in order to serve those markets well, we need to understand the context, right?
Yeah.
So, any thoughts on how we can take some of this very high promise, very promising talent base that we have here, and take them along on the journey of understanding and appreciating that context, because then the solutioning that happens is a lot more relevant to the markets that they serve.
Yeah, sure. So it doesn't matter. You're on the industry side, you're on the service side. I think only thing that matters is what you said, context. When you are you're working in a large product-based organization, you still need to understand the context of your HCP. Your doctor who's using your diagnostic machine or using your services sitting out of Africa needs something very different from you than the guy who's sitting out of India or the guy sitting out of US. The context is very, very different. For a product organization, it is very difficult to adjust basis this context very frequently because it requires a whole lot of hardware investment. For a services organization, to that extent, it's actually relatively much easier. All you need to do is make sure that your teams are making that investment in understanding the client context. We have moved way past or way away from the time when what is written in a statement of work matters or KPIs that matter. None of these are relevant at this point in time. Only thing that the client really cares about is making sure that their program is successful. You need to make sure, your teams need to make sure, your organization need to make sure that you are understanding what success means for that person, that organization, that team. If you understand that, translating that into work groups, translating that into deliverables is probably the easier task. So the more effort and time your organization, your team spends on understanding your client's context, the easier it is to wow them or give them what they really need. So in my head, just coming back, the context is important. If you are able to understand the context, it's not important what environment you are in, product, services, healthcare, automotive. Honestly, in my head, those are all boxes that we have created for ourselves. In the end, the structure remains the same.
The fascinating you say that, because I feel the other box that we have created, and we've done a great job creating that box for ourselves, is geography, right? Wherein we say that, oh, we are not in the same room as the client, so how do you expect us to understand what the client is thinking, what the client is saying? And I'm sure all of us have been at the receiving end of that feedback, and that's an open question to all three of you. I mean, how relevant is geography, and does it really uh, place limitations on understanding context of a client or of a situation?
To some extent, I would say there is a. I listen. If you're able to relate to the client context, then doesn't matter where you sit. I think what Andre said, right? It doesn't matter where you sit as long as you're able to understand the context, right? In my head, there are limitations because see the healthcare systems across the globe work very differently. The way US system works or a Europe system works or India system works, it's just very different. As long as you have made the effort to understand it, life is good. I think the other box that I feel is probably has more limitations is language,
Hmm.
right? As long as you are in the English speaking world, life is a little easier. But there is a huge market in China. There is a substantial market in Japan. So I think that is a little bit bigger box or harder box to overcome. But not the less geography is probably lesser of a problem in my head.
Andre, Mridul, any thoughts?
I think on geography, I agree with Marut here. I think what's happened is that the clients that a lot of us tend to serve, the large pharma companies, the large healthcare organizations, inherently tend to be geographically diverse themselves, right? Even within US, you would find individuals sitting in different pockets. Obviously, globally, you see individuals joining from all these different countries, and when they themselves are not in the same room, right, and then sort of are collaborating across different geographies, it becomes a lot more easier for us to participate in that generally what has become a virtual conversation. And I think COVID has certainly accelerated that, right? We began to see that in the sort of 2012, 13 onwards as sort of more globalization happened, but COVID truly accelerated it, and I think we should take that as an advantage, that we are serving a world that's already becoming very virtual. I think on the language one, again, I think, growing up in healthcare, I think, I recognize that there's students who have also joined and listening in. I think differentiation is important, right, from a talent perspective. And your differentiation could be based on different, areas, right? I mean, someone like me differentiated by, learning the art of creating strategies for clients and sort of going across different contexts, understanding the context, and helping clients think of different problems. There could be a differentiation based on learning some specific languages. There's obviously functional differentiation within healthcare. There is sector differentiation. I'm deep on health plans. I'm deep on pharma versus medtech. So I think students should certainly feel that it is the right time, and there is enough scale in every subsegment now, right? So we now work in, and then the India market has grown to an extent where if you pick a segment that you're interested in, you think you're also certainly good in, you can make a deep career out of it. And I think Marut gave a good indication to some that language could be one, right? I mean, think about someone who knows a Chinese or a Mandarin or a Japanese language, understands bioinformatics, can sort of work across different language systems. The power of that individual to add value is significant. So no, I think it's a challenge, but I think for students specifically, it could be a great opportunity.
Yep. Okay.
I think geography matters. Geography matters a bit in a different way than it used to. And indeed, like Rudo, like you say, most of our clients, they are geographically global. But even them, they are not sitting in the same place. And I think it's still, this is why I believe in the truly virtual global team. I think idea is that we have to be everywhere. And indeed, we have to be close to the clients. We have to be, especially in the life science healthcare space, we have to be close to the legal context of the geography. It's just that we can use the fact that we are so diverse and spread. For example, when it comes to innovation in life sciences and healthcare, I can say from my experience that the fastest digital innovation I could see after pandemic was in India. In India, we had the very first implementations of the remote platforms, of the doctor-patient engagement platforms. We saw a couple of interesting startup initiatives. And then, even today, we go and pitch that experience to customers in Europe and US, which are not as fast, not as agile as the market in India. So I think geography matters. We have to be everywhere.
But then where it changed is that if you want to deliver services to a customer in US, you don't have to have your entire team in US. You have to have also somebody in US, but the team can be truly global. That's how I see it.
Yep, that makes sense. Mridul, let me come to you for just a minute. I mean, I remember you joined Deloitte as a summer intern from campus, and then you grew through the ranks. You became a partner and a leader in the practice, and you eventually actually led Deloitte's recruitment efforts on campuses, right? And in many cases, you were making choices on who to select and who not to select, right? And uh, so, what were you looking for? What are those skill sets that you're looking for? Of course, there are hard skills, but there are also a lot of soft skills that you look for as you put on the hat of hiring talent that can eventually serve the global markets. I think, Mridul, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. So I think two ways in which I understand this. So there's one sort of recruitment that we did from what I would call as general education backgrounds, right? These are individuals who have either done undergrad or postgrad, but in management studies and not necessarily in healthcare. But there are a subset of individuals who may have had some healthcare background. So I think for them, the first thing that I would look for is just willingness to explore an industry that sometimes people can be fearful of, that I don't know enough. It seems complex. There's terminology that I don't understand. There may be nuance that I'm not a doctor. So can I work in this industry? So I think there's that first level of sometimes fear and sometimes openness that I was looking to identify, or individuals who would say, look, at the end of the day, it's a business problem that I would solve. It's going to require me to understand a value chain, a flow of information, a flow of data that is relevant in all other industries. So let me be open to sort of learning that, right? So I think you would need to see that, which I think would apply to individuals who have probably not studied deeper in healthcare or in bioinformatics and other areas, and wanted to go into. So you need to have that sort of interest, and not that fear. I think on the other end, I think healthcare is one of those places where you've studied healthcare, and if you're coming from that background, and in TH we have sort of had the opportunity to look at that kind of talent, you need to be able to go deeper into specific areas, right? So I think it becomes when you slice the market and then you're hiring for a very specific talent, I think you need to have a specialization. And often specialization in pharma healthcare can often be around disease areas, right? So I understand oncology really deeply. So I would value someone who has spent some amount of time going deeper into a disease area and can really appreciate that. Or I understand how generics are commercialized, or I understand how specialty products are commercialized. So there's this intersection that I've built depth over. Because look, I think for all the positives that we will talk about today, it's also the reality that healthcare is a very complex market. Globally, it's very complex. The number of ecosystem players that need to come together to make this happen are large, and hence, you need to be able to have a specialization in a particular area, right? So I think different kind of talent pools. In the general talent pool, I saw willingness to explore and openness and sort of lack of fear. In the other talent pool, I looked at some specialization, some ability for me to place them in a role that I thought would be most relevant.
I think that makes a lot of sense, Mridul, and that could be a interesting segue to this question that we have. As we talk about data sciences, bioinformatics, specifically as we talk about scaling up RWE teams, and what's fascinating is that almost every client that I've spoken to, they have an RWE team out of India, but the team operates at a very small scale, right? You're talking about a core team of 25, 30, and a lot of these clients have come back and said that, look, we would want to scale up those teams, but we just don't have plug and play talent available in India. And I'm sure that all of you in your respective organizations face a similar challenge. So again, what are you doing? I mean, any examples from your respective organizations on how you are training and scaling those critical skills? I wouldn't just limit it to bioinformatics or RWE, but anything which is critical, which is sort of an in thing now that a lot of your clients are asking for, and you don't have plug and play talent available in the country. So any examples of how you are skilling those people up in your respective organizations will be super helpful.
Yeah, it's a tough one. So I'll start off with one example. I think at some of the organizations that I've seen and been in, I think we've begun to have openness to look at individuals with experience of it, especially from a data sciences perspective. I probably wouldn't be able to answer on the bioinformatics side, but from a data science perspective, I think we have seen the openness to bring in talent from other industries into pharma healthcare. And the reason for that is just the maturity that there are other industries like finance has had. There are parallels, right? Because it's again a regulated market. You need to operate under evolving regulations. There is specificity to terminology, and there are individuals who have sort of learned certain core data science skill sets in that industry that are able to take examples and knowledge and bring it into pharma. And we have seen that talent augment the existing data science pharma talent well. So I think at least we have seen the openness to hire from outside and then train them on the language, on the specific data that sits within pharma as one way to solve for the lack of available talent at certain levels.
So maybe just to build on that, right? I mean, and to that extent, healthcare is a little unique, right? Either or doesn't work. You cannot be a expert in a field and not have the healthcare of knowledge, not have the knowledge of healthcare. You need both to succeed, right? Now, very recently, in fact, last week I was in Europe meeting one of our large clients who has built an in-house data science team. Part of it in Europe, part of it in their offshoring center in India. And the biggest struggle that they had is that they have the best talent, but those they're not able to solve the real problems that are faced by their business units. Right? And the fundamental diagnosis of that was that these guys don't really understand the healthcare industry very well, even though they are subject matter experts as far as data science is concerned. Right? So this is a like these are real life examples, the real challenges that these people are having. So either or approach unfortunately doesn't work. Maybe when you're going from banking to consumer, that shift is easier. If you have, because both sides have very mature practices, the buying behavior or the pattern is very similar. You change a few parameters and you're able to adjust to the market. Unfortunately, in healthcare, it's a little bit more nuanced. So not having one versus the other becomes a little bit of challenge in the real situations that we see. So I mean, listen, if you guys are studying to be a data engineer or data analytics guy, you need to find a way to also gain expertise on the field or domain. If healthcare is your preferred, right? And it really pays to be that expert, because that is the only time you can go sit with the business leader and say that, you know what, I understand your problem. I will use data analytics to solve it. Right? Again, I keep going back to you have to understand the context.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough.
I
Andrei, any thoughts?
I will probably entirely second what has been already said. I think there are two topics from our experience. Life sciences and healthcare is less mature in terms of digital journey than banking, for example. The banks are here on my phone. My kids, they have no clue where the bank is. And that's that's like an ultimate example of how digitalized banks became. In healthcare, things are moving at a slower pace, and I think it influences, of course, the data science part of it. But if I would be a student, I think this is the future. If you listen to the reports of the CEOs of the top pharmaceutical companies of the world, you will see that all of them say that their companies will become data companies. So all the pharmas, all the clinical parties, they all look at leveraging the data that they are sitting on. So there will, I would predict that there will be a lot of demand in this space. But I also agree that data science as a naked data science is just a commodity. You have to be data scientist in something. You have to be data scientist in clinical trials. You have to be data scientist in clinical data, in machine learning for the medical devices. So, and technology in general, especially with the evolution of AI and generative AI, will become more and more commodity. You will need to be a technologist with a deep, deep domain knowledge. So go for it. I think it's a future. Data, we are looking as crazy for data engineers and data scientists, not easy to find. It's picking up slowly, but it's picking up. But we need also data engineers who understand the domain.
No, fair enough. No, I think that's a solid question. The reason I was smiling was I was getting a anonymous offline question, which basically said that, hey, we've spoken a lot about what you'd expect from us. Can you also start talking about what we get in return? And I think what the question's trying to address is that, hey, listen, today's generation, we are ambitious, we're aggressive, we're also a little impatient, right? So what kind of opportunities are there for us? I mean, we want to do something new, we want to do something exciting. Of course, working in the global healthcare ecosystem is exciting, but what should we look forward to?
Listen, innovation is the name of the game, right? I mean, and listen, I fundamentally believe that innovation will not happen, especially on, for example, what you said, data analytics or data. It's not going to happen in large companies. It's not going to happen in large organizations. The engine of innovation is going to be smaller organizations, focused organizations. That's where innovation. I mean, primary reason why I left GE and joined Indegene was that, because I fundamentally believe that these are the organizations that will be hotbed of all future innovation. The amount of time, energy, money that we spend today on generative AI is non-trivial. The use cases that have been built, the testing that has been done, these are all non-trivial. So what you can expect from us or organization like us? I think an opportunity. That's all an organization can provide you. Nothing more, nothing less. An opportunity for you to come in, learn, use the skills that you have, and develop something that is path breaking. And there is no bigger satisfaction than doing that. No amount of money, no amount of recognition, no amount of global travel can give you the satisfaction of solving a problem that so far has not been solved using the new age tools that you have to your disposal. So, to some extent, I really feel that you are a generation, the people who are graduating now, are the blessed generation. You don't have to deal with the rudimentary technology that we had to deal with when we started our career or the generation prior to us. For you, 60% of the mundane work is already solved. So what we are looking for is you to come and use your cerebral capacities, use your superior skill set, knowledge of technology, and help us solve some of the toughest problems that are being faced by the world today. And we give you that environment to solve that. That's about it.
No, well said. Well said. Anything else that you guys wish to add, Mridul and Andre?
Yeah, I think if you think about healthcare life sciences and to Marut's point, the innovation that's happening in this space and the scale that's eventually coming to India in this space, I think it opens up for a lot of optionality going forward, right? I think I still think that as an industry, it probably doesn't even rank as the top 5 industry in a lot of Asian markets, right? You look at the US, it's probably in the top 1 or 2. You come here and you look at, and Europe is probably biggest, where you come in these markets and you don't even look at healthcare life sciences as that big an industry. But something has got to flip, right? At some point, the growth rate in these economies is going to mandate that healthcare life sciences keeps to become a more prominent industry as opposed to where it is today. And then individuals who have spent time in that industry, I think, would have an advantage to be in large corporates, that where you can take the experience of serving the developed world, serving in these setups where you may be in India but serving global markets, to actually serving the local market in any of these Asian geographies. I think that experience would come in very handy, and we see some of that happening already. Then the second is, to again Marut's point, you could actually be entrepreneurs yourself, right? the ability to innovate is in smaller companies. I'd argue that it's maybe even better in much smaller companies than an individual, right? So we continue down that continuum. And if you look at the investment and the funding that's happening in healthcare life sciences, it's still minuscule. But there's a lot of appetite and interest. I think what a lot of investors tell me is that there is lack of available assets and entrepreneurs in this space, as opposed to intent to invest. So I think all of you could get an experience in an organized setup, learn about different markets and different intersections, and potentially start something in your local market as well.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think this domain is one of the most fascinating in terms of the breakthroughs that will come. I will not quote the name of the company, but it's a large Swiss biotech. I was attending a town hall given by one of the senior leaders, and they were saying that with all the breakthroughs in technology, with data and generative AI and everything that's going on in the bioinformatics, we might witness people who are already born today who will see the possibility and the technology that will make life eternal, right? That they will break death. So I don't know if I would believe in that or not, but ambition and the power that will be put in this, and we will see self-treatment, home treatment, digital solutions everywhere. That's probably the biggest asset that your generation or youngsters will have joining this industry. This will be one of the most fascinating areas of our life. I truly believe that.
That's great. We have 5 minutes left. I want to do a small exercise. I want to take all of you back to when you were your first day, first month, first year on the job. You were these, sort of young, full of dreams, professionals who joined the workplace. I would love if each of you could share maybe one story of that first major interaction that you had, your the successes that came out of that, what didn't go well, anything that you want to share. I think, Mridul, I would start with you. Uh, Probably something that I know, but I would. What
Yeah, maybe a couple of stories I'll tell. Literally my first project was about learning about the mesh, the surgical mesh market, where you had to learn about hernia as one disease and breast augmentation as another area. And it came from campus. You sort of are, or you join in a very sort of setup where there are multiple people from your own educational institute that joins at the same time. And I'm doing research on my laptop about these diseases, and the images that come up, right, are for research purposes only. And my colleagues sitting next to me, who are, someone is working on a global FMCG brand, someone is working for a bank, are probably not sort of able to relate to what I'm searching for. And I saw this sort of element of a bit of amaze, that what are you even doing, right? How are you able to, as an engineer, as someone who has studied management in general, how are you able to relate to this research deep in science, deep in areas that we've not really studied before? And why are you even doing that? Because you're doing a business case, but why are you sort of going? And then just what I felt at that point was, I don't find it awkward. I'm not finding it, something that's out of the ordinary. And just the ability to look at everything as a business problem, that as I would understand how, a drug performs in a human body, I would similarly study how someone buys from a retail setup, right? It's all business at the end of the day. And I think that sort of gave me comfort that yes, working in life sciences healthcare, should be okay. And I may be in a place where there's not a lot of individuals who have interest, but there's a lot of business given the markets that we serve. I also sort of recall working in setups where you had to be in truly kind of dynamic environments with different sort of cultures. And this was, I recall a working session very early in my career in Europe, where just the ability. I was in one of the rooms when I saw the sort of people in the room, right? There were representation from different parts of US, East Coast, West Coast. There was representation from different countries in Europe, and there was representation from India and Southeast Asia as well. And just the privilege of being in those rooms, and then the ability to not just sort of work on the specific topic at hand, but the ability to interact with individuals from that background, felt again like a good room to be in, and just strengthen the belief that just continue what you're doing. And so I think these setups where you would get to interact with global team members, I think has been very enriching for me.
Great. Marut, any stories
Yeah.
from your first year?
So, first of all, I take exception to the fact that you said that when you were young. Listen, we are still young and we're still very enthusiastic about things we do, whatever the gray hair says.
I should have said your younger selves.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'll probably take that. But listen, I have to concede that I do not have any memory of any hard skill that I learned in the first 5 years of my career. Zero. I think what I was taught, and I was privileged to be in that environment, was how to think, how to solve a problem, how to break down an issue, and how to solve it step by step till you get to the right answer. Keep iterating. So, and that's probably the reason, one of the biggest reason of my success where I am today is that we focused our learning on building that skill set, not the hard skill set, but the thinking skill set. I still remember in the first 2 years of my career with GE, at the height of global financial crisis, I was sitting in a room in Fairfield, which was the headquarters at that point in time, talking to one of very senior data scientists and telling him you need to release reserves. It was sacrilege at that time. People were building up billions of dollar reserves, and I was going and telling him you need to release reserves. Right? In the very next assignment, I was sitting in front of a gentleman in Mexico, telling him how he could improve his manufacturing efficiency. The guy who spent 25 years in the industry doing that. Right? And none of that would have been possible if people who gave me those assignments looked at the hard skill set that I had. I had none. Right? So my recommendation, my urge to all of you guys who are starting your career, will start a career soon, is hard skills will come. Even if you don't want to learn, life will teach you hard skills. Focus on your softer skills. Focus on ability to think. Focus on ability to analyze. If you get that right, it'll hold you in the right stead for the rest of your life.
Excellent. Andrei?
For the funny story, I have many stories where I can embarrass myself. But maybe to summarize this, Marut will kind of conclusion, and I like your idea. So I call myself, I always call myself, I'm a product of the Soviet Union because I was born and I grew up in Russia. My father was a military engineer. And we were moving from one military base to another. In 10 years of my school, I changed 8 schools. And for me as a kid, it was hard. And it was very painful. I couldn't, couldn't settle down in one place or create maybe a long-term friendship. But I realized really soon, and it helped me a lot in my early years in professional career, is that if I look at Andrei now, and if I compare Andrei now with Andrei 20 years ago, I see some progress, right? And I see things that I could be proud of. And if I try to track back in time, what are the moments in time that produced changes, positive changes? These were not good times, never. It was either a crisis, a problem, a stress, I don't know, difficult escalations, difficult, even personal, professional problems. And those are the only things that led to progress, not good times, not things when I was happy. Of course, it's good to have happy times, but maybe also like a reflection, be grateful for all the crises that you will have in your life,
because these are the only moments when you will be able to step forward.
Yeah. No, well said, all of you. And again, I know it's late for all of us in India, and thank you so much for taking the time. I think fascinating conversation. We spoke about the importance of context. We spoke about the fact that we have an opportunity to solve some very complex problems going forward. And Andre, that I think that was a great way to close the session by saying that you learn a lot from the hard times as opposed to the good times, right? And I think all of us in our respective lives would have experienced that. Thank you again for taking the time, and thank you so much for our audience for keying in. I hope you took something away from this, and we sure enjoyed bringing this session to you.
Pleasure to
Thanks.
be here.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good evening.